So, is this going to be a thing now? The meta, self-referential superhero movies and TV shows that incorporate actors playing a particular character from previous iterations of a franchise and puts them on screen with the current actors playing the same character in a new iteration of the same franchise. The recent Spider-Man No Way Home trailer really made me think about where the comic book superhero genre has been going for the past number of years. The Deadpool comics, and subsequent films starring Ryan Reynolds with their metafictional style, gave us what I can only describe as a bit of a temporary novelty, a character who can look directly at the camera and speak to the audience with a comedic parody formula that enables him to make humorous references that break the fourth wall.
Let us go talk to the professor.
McAvoy or Stewart? These timelines are so confusing.
Zip it, Thanos. We have a deal and you fucker.
While this kind of parody is fun in small doses, it's basically a bit of a gimmick and begins to get old after a while, mainly because it only works by continuously finding new ways to be outrageous or shocking, and the irony and self-awareness can often take the audience out of the story. Now, Spider-Man No Way Home isn't a comedy like Deadpool, obviously, but it does have something in common with it, because the multiverse plot device that allows for the crossover of Alfred Molina's Dr. Octopus from the second of Sam Raimi's Spider-Man films is a kind of metafictional storytelling in and of itself. It's also been widely rumoured that Andrew Garfield and Tobey Maguire will appear as their respective versions of Spider-Man. So, while Deadpool breaks certain fourth wall boundaries for comic effect, the multiverse concept of incorporating the Tobey Maguire, Andrew Garfield, and Tom Holland Spider-Men together breaks a boundary between different Spider-Man productions and universes that were never previously designed to cross over. Each universe has its own unique canon and continuity. What's interesting is that the internet is all abuzz with the tantalizing possibility of seeing three different cinematic interpretations of the same character at the same time, all interacting with each other. But the question is, why? Surely just seeing three different actors playing the same role isn't sufficient to whip up a frenzy of interest, is it? Because nothing about their mere on-screen appearance together guarantees an interesting story or a satisfying film. Just like with Deadpool, there's something about this kind of crossover that takes me out of the film and where my suspension of disbelief is lost. The film is trying to tell you that the reason these three different versions of Peter Parker / Spider-Man look like different men is because of some parallel universe situation. Back in 2002, when the first Tobey Maguire Sam Raimi Spider-Man film was being made, there was no talk of multiverses and alternate Peter Parkers. This entire contrived multiverse concept has emerged recently and is now essentially creating a kind of retcon whereby the Tobey Maguire and Andrew Garfield Spider-Man universes become part of the canon of the Tom Holland MCU Spider-Man universe. There's a distracting self-awareness within such a film where we're being told, hey, those other actors who played the same character years before, yeah, here's the contrived explanation as to why. It's all connected. It's a magical multiverse. But it's not an explanation we ever needed. The character has been recast multiple times. I don't need to see all of the previous James Bonds team up in one movie together. Imagine how much of a mess that would be. This is perhaps a sign of the times when it comes to modern Hollywood. We're actually long past the point where story, content, originality, creativity, or quality of writing really matters. The superhero genre is so oversaturated and has already explored every major and minor character and produced all of the galaxy-shattering moments and epic battles imaginable, that now all that's left is to essentially deconstruct the genre itself. Previously, it was clear that Tobey Maguire and Andrew Garfield's versions of Spider-Man were both disconnected and unrelated from each other in the same way that the Tom Holland version was disconnected and unrelated to both of them. All three were part of a unique and independent canon of their own. However, we're now living in a time where even the previous firewall that existed between the X-Men and the MCU is being broken down in preparation for yet another gimmicky crossover, so anything has become possible. And it hasn't just been Marvel that's been doing this recently. DC's Arrowverse crossover event on the CW called Crisis on Infinite Earths saw loads of mashups. From Tom Welling and Erica Durance's versions of Clark Kent and Lois Lane respectively from the TV series Smallville, meeting Tyler Hoechlin's version of Clark Kent and John Cryer's version of Lex Luthor, to Ezra Miller's version of The Flash meeting Grant Gustin's version of The Flash, to Brandon Routh's version of Superman meeting Tyler Hoechlin's version of Superman, and many, many more such crossovers besides. Another element to consider with these kinds of multiverse crossover mashups is that they also serve as an opportunity to tap into audience nostalgia. And we know that from Hollywood's obsession in recent years with sequels, prequels, and reboots, that nostalgia is a powerful marketing device and a very profitable one. Some people will pay to see Tobey Maguire and Andrew Garfield's respective versions of Spider-Man alongside Tom Holland's version out of pure nostalgia for the Maguire and Garfield films. Of course, Hollywood blockbusters are all about making money, I understand that completely, but coming up with contrived, gimmicky plot reasons for crossing over different actors who played the same character in the past, it just feels like a desperate attempt to milk the franchise. It's like the thinking was, well, there's nothing left to do. I mean, we've done everything else, so we might as well do this and see what happens. What's next? Get all of the Batmans together? Let's have Michael Keaton's Batman meet Val Kilmer's Batman and George Clooney's Batman and Christian Bale's Batman and Ben Affleck's Batman. Let's put them all together and see what happens. Nothing would surprise me. Of course, the new Flash film with Ezra Miller will see both Ben Affleck and the return of Michael Keaton as Bruce Wayne and Batman. And you know, I believe that if a deal could ever be brokered to one day have a DC and Marvel mega crossover film, you can be sure it would happen no matter how unlikely it currently seems. Imagine Bruce Wayne meeting Tony Stark. Also, if the Millennium Falcon ever meets the Starship Enterprise because of some tear in the fabric of the space-time continuum, don't say I didn't warn you. Also, notice that the multiverse plot device always seems to work in effectively the same way. Something like, the universe is breaking down, reality is being ripped apart, the boundaries between dimensions are collapsing, etc. Basically, audiences would never previously have accepted the possibility of, for example, a crossover between different Spider-Man or Superman productions unless there was some kind of crazy, wacky MacGuffin that made it all possible. So whether it's DC or Marvel, the multiverse alternate reality plot device requires the creation of absolute chaos in the story in order to justify the crossover of different superhero productions.
Now there is a malevolent force at work, one driven by a singular goal, the destruction of all there is.
We tampered with the stability of space-time. The multiverse is a concept about which we know frighteningly little.
It's becoming a bit of a trope now. The universe is falling apart, and so alternate reality versions of the same superheroes all have to unite together to help restore the integrity of the universe before all of space and time collapse, or some other such variation of that.
The entire universe needs you.
Across space and time exist 7 heroes who can save the multiverse.
So as I've said, in recent years, we've seen Hollywood milk cash cow franchises with sequels, prequels, and reboots. Now you can add to that list a new type of genre all of its own, the multiverse mashup, allowing for a meta, self-aware kind of crossover event that basically absorbs previously unrelated incarnations of a popular franchise for a ratings or box office stunt. That's what this current obsession with multiverse crossover events feels like. A cheap, gimmicky trick, and perhaps one of the last remaining golden goose eggs to be squeezed from a popular franchise that's long past its sell-by date.